song. It takes me back to many, many days. Many days sitting in the pews and singing that out myself. I love that song. Well, the scripture today, or the title, as I've already mentioned to Pat, that I apologize to for it being about brownies. Okay, if that's your favorite dessert, you may never think of them the same again, and I am sorry for that. I really am. But we're going to get to that. As I said earlier, it's going to be a little bit. We're going to get to that. This is a message. I've had bits and pieces of this in my notes for months, actually. And I was praying and waiting. I used to get nervous about that sort of thing. At the reunion yesterday, I wrote a sermon and a moment of inspiration for the radio. Okay, I just typed them both in. I felt like people were probably thinking, well, Todd's not paying attention to the program. Yes, Todd was. I was paying so much attention, I took notes. How about that? Okay? But I write those things down because at some point in time, it's all going to fit together. I know that now. And this is one of those times. Some of these notes, they've come from months of coming together, and it finally just all fit, and I'm just super excited about it. So anyway, we're talking about vacation last week, right? We went on vacation. The tennis team, Jillian did just fantastically wonderful. The whole team, maybe not so much, but that's okay. That's okay, because we had a good time Saturday. We watched a lot of tennis. And then we had Sunday, which we didn't know if she was going to play on Sunday. So we had Sunday, we went to the zoo. Okay? Now, it was not the car ride over and back. That wasn't the zoo. Okay? The zoo was the actual zoo with the animals. Like, we walked in, and this was so funny. Yeah, I could just do the whole thing. I got to watch my time. But we walked in, and you walk right in the Indy Zoo, and there's seals. And they are rather cute for just being, like on TV, it's like, well, that's a seal. But you see one in person, it's kind of like, wow, he's kind of cool looking, you know? And all one of them was doing was sitting up there with this big old flipper kind of scratching his nose. And then there's Jillian going, oh, look, he's scratching his nose. And I'm like, he's scratching his nose. I mean, you know, it's going to be that kind of day where animals do normal things and we think it looks really cool, right? But we were there. We saw seals. We saw bears. We watched the dolphin show. They got a big dolphin thing. We sat in the arena, you know, watched the dolphin show. We saw elephants, giraffes, snakes. Like I'll say, oh my, right in there. And we saw everything. I did not like the snakes part, but I did go in because I knew they were contained. Okay? So you get it. You know, if you haven't been to the zoo in a while, you still get it. It's still just like the zoo. They might change it a little bit, but, you know, it's still the zoo. But, and I'm going to say, I was going to research this, but I didn't know if they would have it. I'm going to guess that inside all of that activity we saw, that there was probably an endangered species in there. I don't know that for sure. Are bald eagles endangered still? I don't know. If they were, we saw a bald eagle. You kind of had to look in his hut. He really wasn't too out there, you know. But I'm sure that we saw an endangered species at some point in that zoo trip. You know, those things that they're protecting. You know what those are. You know, there's not a whole lot of them out there, so they want to make sure that they protect them a little bit. You know what endangered species are. I truly believe that this message today is about a modern-day endangered species. I really do. With the way the world pressures us and the way it gets really tough to do what we talk about and we think about and we hear about, it gets really tough. But it's not an animal. It's a trait. It's our way of going about our lives, and it's incredibly rare. And you know what that word means. It's incredibly rare. Incredibly. So what is it? Integrity. Integrity. Is integrity rare? I would ask you to put yourself in front of the television to watch something on TV that is a popular show now. I love the way that, you know, they name these things, you know, the real life shows, you know. And I think, man, if that was my real life, I'd be changing, right? I don't want to live in a house like that. All they're doing is backstabbing to see who wins. I wouldn't put myself in a situation where, I'm sorry, ladies, I mean, they're never going to ask me to be the bachelor. And even if they did, there is no way you're going to put me there to decide between all those ladies. Are you kidding me? They'd kill me. How real is that? I mean, reality TV scares me. But it's real. It's real. And where is integrity, or where has integrity gone in our lives? Where has it gone? Now, before you form an opinion of yourself, which probably has already happened, and you don't think that you have enough integrity, or before you puff out your chest and say, well, it's not an endangered species when I'm around, okay? Before we get that far, I have no doubt in my mind that God expects us as believers to be people of integrity. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. To be people of integrity. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, if you're sitting here and you're not a believer, then you don't have to live by my rule book. You're free to do whatever you want to do. Do I believe that one day you will stand before a judge as I will and have to answer for that? Yes, I absolutely do. But you're still free to choose. He offers you that. He asks you to give Him permission to come into your life. So where are we at with integrity? Because many, many fail. Pressures from society, whether it be at work or at home, worldly living does not exude integrity. Because as I have said before in my own life, we're going to share some of the things literally out of my locker, out of my world. I feel like I picture daily, at least, multiple times, in the decisions that I have to make, I picture a bar in front of me. And have I lowered that bar or have I raised that bar by the decisions that I make in my life? I've told my kids before, and I'll tell them again today, I expect them to do higher and greater things than I have done in my life. But I'm not going to lower my bar to make it easy for them. Where do we set our bar? Our integrity says it all. Do we lower it, making decisions easier, or do we raise it? Because if you let the world set the bar, you can move it wherever you want to make you feel better. So I want to read about it first. I absolutely love it. I love it. If you've ever watched soap operas or anything that looks like a soap opera, I'm serious. You have to read, especially what we're reading today. Reading Samuel. Read about the life of David. It goes from one thing to another to another. It's hard for me to find a stop and start point. Okay? It's better than a soap opera because this was a real deal. Actually happened. Life of David. This is before he was king. Now remember, he was anointed as a boy. Samuel, in the book that we're in, Samuel had anointed David as a boy, but Saul was still king. I'd give you a star, but I don't have time for your answer. Why was Saul king? Saul was king because the people wanted a king. God said, you don't need a king. Don't you see all these other kingdoms? They have kings, and that's not right. People said, we want a king. So they chose Saul. Why did they choose Saul? Because he was tall, and he just looked like a leader. He's a good leader. Well, they weren't looking at his heart like God did. But God said, fine, we'll give you Saul. So Saul was still the king, but he was out of God's favor at this point. He had made enough mistakes. He had done enough ungodly things. Trust me, just read the book. He did a bunch of them. That he was out of God's favor. And at this point, he was trying to kill David. Okay? David had 400 men. Saul had thousands. David had 400 men that the world wouldn't really accept that followed him around and fought with him. David and his fighting men. And they did a lot of good things. If you read the Bible, this is a chapter where there was a lot of killing. I'm just going to tell you that right now. One of the reasons why God told David, you won't build my temple because you have too much blood on your hands. Your son will build my temple. I don't want you to build my temple. You are a man after my own heart, but you're not going to build my temple because you have too much blood on your hands. Okay? That was David. But he got it done. But Saul is trying to kill him and his men, has been trying to kill them, and that's where we're going to pick it up and start reading in the 24th chapter, verses 1 through 22, which ends up being the whole book. And I decided, see, it's long enough, I'm just going to sit down this morning. How about that? Okay? So, 24th chapter, first verse. After Saul returned from fighting the Philistines, okay? He had been fighting them. He had chased David around, and then he found out that the Philistines were actually invading Jerusalem, so he went back and protected Jerusalem from them, got rid of them, and then he comes back looking for David again. So after he returns from that, he was told that David had gone into the wilderness of En-Gedi, so he knew where David had gone. So Saul chose 3,000 3,000 elite troops from all of Israel and went to search for David and his men in the rocks of the wild goats. Now there's some more meaning in there, if you know the goats and the sheep thing. But anyway, he searched for David. He's got 3,000 elite soldiers. David has 400. Okay, and Saul's going after him. At the place where the road passes some sheepfolds, Saul went in a cave to relieve himself. Now see, we're going to eat later, so we won't go too far with that. But you know, there he goes. Okay, Saul goes into a cave. David is in a cave. You see where this is going? But it happened, David and his men were hiding farther back in that very cave. Now come on, days of our lives, you got nothing on us, right? There's David, 400 men hiding back in a big old cave, and Saul decides, well, I need some privacy here, and he chooses the same cave. There goes the king who's trying to kill the anointed king, and everybody knows Saul's trying to kill David. Everybody knows it. So, here we go. Now's your opportunity. David's men whispered to him. Of course, see, you have to whisper because you're in the same cave. Okay? Today, the Lord is telling you, I will certainly put your enemy into your power to do with you as you wish. So David crept forward and cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. Can you see this? Dark cave, and David got up there, and and all his men are saying, there he is, there he is. Of course they're whispering, okay, there he is. Right? It's all set up. But, remember, integrity. But, then David's conscience began bothering him because he had cut Saul's robe. He didn't cut Saul's throat. He cut Saul's robe. And it bothers him. It bothers him. The Lord knows. The Lord knows. I shouldn't have done that to my Lord and the king. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this to my Lord the king and attack the Lord's anointed one. The Lord's anointed one. David still sees him as his king, even though he's trying to kill him. For the Lord himself has chosen him. So David restrained his men and did not let them kill Saul. After Saul left the cave and gone on his way, David came out. Can you imagine this scene, right? There's Saul. I don't know whether Saul's riding a camel or a horse. I don't know. But he's got 3,000 men down there, and he's down the hill, going back down to his troops, and out comes David. Okay? Out of the cave. Can you imagine that? What would you be thinking? Right? There he came. My Lord the king, David said. And when Saul looked around, David bowed low before him. Are you kidding me? This guy came with 3,000 men to cut your head off. You cut his robe off. You feel bad about it, and now you are bowing to him? Are you kidding me? Then he shouted, Saul, why do you listen to the people who say, I am trying to kill you? This very day you can see with your own eye it isn't true. For the Lord placed you at my mercy back there in the cave. I mean, he's saying, come on, man. I could have killed you in a minute. And you're listening to people who tell you that I'm trying to kill you. If I was trying to kill you, you'd be dead. He's saying, come on, man. What are you doing listening to those people? The Lord placed you at my mercy back there in the cave. Some of my men told me to kill you, but I spared you. For I said, I will never harm the king. He is the Lord's anointed one. Look, my father, he calls him my father, at what I have in my hand. It is a piece of the hem of your robe. I cut it off, but I didn't kill you. This proves that I am not trying to harm you, and that I have not sinned against you, even though you have been hunting for me to kill me. May the Lord judge. May the Lord judge between us. Perhaps the Lord will punish you for what you are trying to do to me, but I will never harm you. As that old proverb says, and David wrote most of the Proverbs, but this, Solomon did. I mean, this is the old proverb. From evil people come evil deeds. So you can be sure that I will never harm you. In other words, David's saying, I'm not evil. If I was evil, you'd be dead. From evil people come evil deeds, and that's not me. Who is the king of Israel trying to catch anyway? Should he spend his time chasing one who is worthless as a dead dog or a single flea? May the Lord therefore judge which of us is right and punish the guilty one. David's saying it's up to God. He is my advocate, and He will rescue me from your power. I mean, how about that? It's not up to me, man. I'm leaving it to God, but I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. It's pretty much what he's saying, right? When David had finished speaking, Saul called back, "Is that really you, my son David?" Then he began to cry. And he said, "David, you are a better man than I am, for you have repaid me good for evil. Yes, you have been amazingly kind to me today. For when the Lord put me in a place where you could have killed me, you didn't do it. Who else would let his enemy get away when he had him in his power? May the Lord reward you well for the kindness you have shown me today. And now I realize that you are surely going to be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will flourish under your rule. Now swear to me," here's Saul's comeback, "swear to me by the Lord that when that happens, when you become king, David, you will not kill my family and destroy my line of descendants." So David promised this to Saul with an oath. Then Saul went home, but David and his men went back to their stronghold. May God bless the reading of His Word this morning. And that's not the end of the story, folks. Keep reading it. Because David made an oath. A man of integrity made an oath to a man who was trying to kill him that day that he wouldn't wipe out his descendants. And eventually that very thing comes to David's own household. A crippled boy that was of Jonathan, David's descent, Saul's grandson, is a crippled child that was dropped as a baby. And David brings that kid out of poverty, away from there, into his house and his palace, and takes care of that boy until the day that he dies. David did not refuse the oath given that he gave to it on the day to a man that wanted to kill him. And if you keep reading, Saul keeps it up. Saul doesn't keep his oath. David spares his life more than once. Chapter 26 is about another time that David spared his life. So, David had the chance, but he refused. He said, "It's not my duty, it's God's." And I put myself in the same category. Not the integrity category, but this category. What would I have done? I bet there's a bunch of guys in here thinking that today. What would I have done? Would I listen to the guy right there telling me, "Man, there he is, God gave him to you"? Because, man, that'd be hard to deny. He's standing right there. I mean, look at all these caves, and he came in the one we're in. Who does that? Who does that? But David had a truth in his life, a base, and he knew God was bigger than this instance. And if God was going to pull it off, God was going to pull it off, but it wasn't going to be by his hand. It wasn't going to be by his hand. And I wonder how you and I would do that. And this topic of integrity is incredibly important to me. And a few years ago, I really felt convicted in my spirit. Not because I didn't feel like I was living with integrity, but that I needed it more in my life. I needed it right in front of my face. Now, I don't know if you're like me, but I have to have something right in front of me. As I told you earlier, like that bar that I have to picture me setting or lowering based on the decisions I make that day, how I use my mouth. I had somebody this week that told me, seriously, they told me, they said, "Well, you just ought to tell me more the way it is. Just let me have it. Maybe that'd be better." And I said, "Oh, no. Oh, no. One, that wouldn't be better. And two, that would be much worse for me, because I would be clicking that bar all the way down to here to feel better for that long. And then I would know that that bar is down there, and I will not do that. I will not do that so that you think our relationship would be better, because it won't be. Because it won't be. It's my bar. It's your bar. But I have to have things in front of me. And this is something that came, this is actually from my life. I don't know how well they're going to appear on the screen. I hope they appear well, but they might not. Can you see that? It's really bad. because that's been torn. That thing's probably 5 years old. It's a note that I wrote to myself. Okay? I kept it in the truck for a long time, and then I moved it to my locker. That's the top of my locker. So you want to know what pastor's locker looks like? That's the door. When you open the door, that note card says, integrity has, that's the word that got ripped. Integrity has to do with who you are on the inside, regardless of what's happening on the outside. Don't blame others if your level of integrity isn't what it should be. That was a note to myself. Don't you dare, Todd. Don't you dare blame somebody else if your integrity isn't what it should be. If somebody else gives you permission to talk to them like you want to talk to them, like that's not your level. That's not your level. Don't you dare blame somebody else. I have to have this in my life. In fact, every once in a while, I'll go and open my locker door and read some of these cards. It's full of them. I need that. Not because I'm special, because I'm special in that I need the reminders. And God knows it. Now, a few cards down from there is this one. If a man lacks ability, you can teach him job skills. We get that? He doesn't know how to mop the floor, you can teach him how to mop the floor. He doesn't know how to drive a truck, you can teach him how to drive a truck. But if a man lacks integrity, no amount of job training will make him a trustworthy person. Have you ever been around anybody like that? Doesn't matter how good they are at their job. If they don't have any integrity, you can't add that to them. You can't add integrity to the mix. Integrity has to come from within. Integrity has to come from inside you and inside me. That's the only place it exists, and that's where God expects it to exist, and that's where it existed with David. If it didn't exist with David, he would not have gone to God, and he would have killed Saul, and he would have not have thought about God in doing it. But integrity has to come from within. Do you need reminders like that? I need reminders like that. Obviously, I need reminders like that. They're incredibly important to God. And in my opinion, how we try to live with integrity says everything about our walk with God. And I will not apologize for that, for you or for me. Because I truly believe that God is real. It is not some face that we put on to walk in here on Sunday morning and be together. God is with me 24/7. He is with you if you ask Him in. He died for us. He listens to us. And He is guiding us. And because I believe that, how could we ever live a single day without integrity? How? If God is with you, how can you not live with integrity? How? I have to ask myself that when I wonder where I'm going to put that bar. God is with me. God is watching me, not because I'm special, but because He loves me and I have asked Him into my life. And I have asked Him into my life. And He is watching me. What do I do with integrity? And maybe you sit here today and you've slipped. God knows that. And you want to get back on track. You want to live with more integrity. I'll tell you about some other facts. Facts. If you need facts, I'll give you facts. Literal studies that have gone on about the brains that are in your head and my head. Our physical brains and how they work. God made them. He knows how they work. There was a documentary. It was actually called Dishonest. And we watched it. If you have Netflix, I highly encourage you to watch that. It's fabulous. They were talking about integrity and telling the truth. Okay? You got to tell the truth if you're going to have integrity. And living with truth in all aspects of our lives. That's integrity. All aspects. Doesn't matter who you're dealing with. In this study, when they asked someone to tell their first lie, just tell me a lie, like, my shirt's red, okay? Your brain has a huge response to that lie. And there's all kinds of colors on the brain scan thing that light up because you're you're lying. And you know it. But if you tell the same lie the 10th time, there's hardly any brain activity. No big deal now. I've gotten used to it. Remember our passages about you need to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. God knows it. God knows it. And the studies prove it. Your brain and my brain literally adapt to the environment that we expose them to. Integrity. If your integrity and your bar are this low, your brain doesn't even go off when things happen. Because you haven't tried. You don't live in that world. If you have slipped, stop slipping. Click that bar up the next time. Don't do what you always do. Because I'm going to stand here and tell you right now, that study proved it. If you keep it here and you never raise it or you click it down, I guarantee you you're not going to live with integrity. Because your brain's going to tell you you don't have to. You're just fine. And that's not true. That's not true. To live with integrity, we have to keep the bar high and we have to raise the bar. And I'm not going to tell you it's easy. And another thing I didn't even put in my notes that I should have is I'm going to guarantee you one other thing I'm just going to tell you right now. It's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you something. It's probably going to cost, I'm going to say likely, it's probably going to cost you a friendship or 2 or 10 or 12, not one of your friends. Okay? It's probably going to cost you some money. I'm just telling you that right now because there's going to be a time whenever you can justify not doing something and integrity is going to say, you probably better do that. Integrity will cost you something. But the dividends it pays are out of this world. Because that person you see in the mirror, you're a little easier on. Your whole life changes. After learning to live a life of integrity, you have changed. The old person no longer exists. And you wonder how you did what you did before. How many of us today are living that life? How many of us today? In that study, there was a man named Tim Donahue. He was an NBA ref. If you saw his picture, you'd recognize him. I did when I saw it. Oh, yeah, I remember that guy. Well, here was the deal. He had a buddy that had some buddies. Kind of see the thing? And he knew that some of the refs that he dealt with, he was buddies with, favored certain teams and certain owners. Well, one day he was looking at the paper and he said, hey, I can see that so-and-so is going to win tonight. They're like, why? And he goes, well, because that ref like this owner, so they're going to call the game their way. And he's like, no way. And he goes, oh, yes way. He says, well, can you do that on other ones? He goes, oh, yeah. He started circling them out. Well, this buddy took that to somebody who was had a little less integrity, and they started using it, and that turned out to be the mob. Huh. And long story short, Tim tried to get out, but he was too deep. They took him for a little car ride around the city, and they told him, if you get out, we know where your wife lives. We know where your son goes to school. We know where this and that and the other happened. And before you know it, the government found out, and his name was in it, and he's now in prison. Do you see what happens when we let our integrity slip a little bit? You get pulled into things that you had no intentions of being a part of. No intentions. The baseline in our brains can be changed. Be transformed. Know that it was not okay to cut off that robe. That he was the king. That's the baseline that we need. So, to wrap up, Brownies. Brownies. Here's the story. A father had 2 sons. I believe it's a true story. So I kind of appreciate this. I can see Luke and Jack. If you want a picture of me and Luke and Jack, go right ahead because I love this story. Okay? Had 2 sons. And the sons came to him and says, Dad, hey, there's a movie out there we want to go see. It's a new movie we kind of like to see. Is it okay if we see it? And so then I politely say, all right, boys, that's fine. What kind of movie is it? Well, it's not that bad. So what do you mean by not that bad? What about, nudities or any of that in there? Well, just a little, but not a lot. Okay, what about language? Well, yeah, there's some foul language in there, Dad. A little bit. Well, they talk about God, yeah. Is it bad? Well, the trailer maybe a little, but it's the best movie. It's good. It teaches me a lot. So it's just got a little bit of nudity and just a little bit of language. A little bit against God, just a little, right? A little bit? Yep, that's all it's got, Dad. Can we go? No. What do you mean we can't go? No, you can't go. But I'll tell you what I'll do instead. I'm going to bake you some brownies. Family recipe. I'm sure they would kind of like it, but kind of not, right? So I baked the brownies, and later that evening I said, well, here's the brownies you got. You boys want brownies, but before you have your batch of brownies, I need to tell you one thing. I added a little something. You see, I followed Moses, our poodle, out. I just took a little bit of his dropping and I put it in your brownies. Just a little. Not very much. So if you eat that corner over there, it might be okay. Then again, it might not. Might be in the middle. Might be on the side. I don't know where it's at. But it's in there somewhere. But boys, it's just a little bit. It doesn't matter, Dad. It's just a little, so eat it up. They're all yours. Now, I know that may seem a little extreme, but it's not. When it comes to integrity, it is not. How do we live our lives? How do we live our lives, and what do we do with them? What do we do? I hope we see Dad's point. I used to always say, and I used to always hear, that, well, there's no good movies out there anymore. We just talked about this morning. There's no good movies. You know, since we've had Netflix, if you ever have any service like that, they start showing you things you might like because you watched. Because you watched. You know what's amazing now? We would have to go on there and search for an R-rated nasty movie to find one. Because all of them that come up for us, we watched a great one just last night. It's not going to be some big title. But it's a good movie. In fact, it was about a preacher. I kind of liked that. What I'm saying is, if you start making your choices, it's amazing the number of things that change in your life. And if I'm not standing up here telling you that I've got it all figured out, and I'm not standing up here telling you it's going to be easy, because I'll say both of those are false. I don't have it all figured out. And it is hard. Every day. That's why I have those cards in my locker. But God expects no less of you or of me. And I'm simply encouraging you to raise the bar, to change the way we think, make that baseline in our brains a little deeper, rooted in something more than what the world has to show us. And I will guarantee you this, your life will change. Your life will change. And you'll like it. Will you pray with me? Our God and our Father, we thank you for the time in our life when we come to a challenging spot and we need to live with integrity. Father, we need to see the stories written thousands of years ago. We need to see what it's truly like to stand and to live with integrity. Father, many times we would have done much different than what David did. Our reaction would have been different. Our choices would have been different. But Father, give us that strength and wisdom to know that you are the Lord. That it's you that we answer to. No man, no human authority. It is you. And Father, as you walk with us, as we have asked you into our lives, may we know that you are there to strengthen and encourage us. And yes, to hold us accountable for the integrity that we have. And I thank you for loving us enough to help us be the people that you would have us to be. May we go from here with your strength. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So now's the time.